Okay.
Pursuant to the applicable laws and my determination that attendance by remote means is necessary because of the ongoing because an in-person meeting is not practical, nor is it prudent to the declared public health disaster caused by COVID-19. The meeting is being conducted via video conference, and this meeting is being recorded, and it will be posted shortly to the SSA website. Rod, this meeting is called to order.
Okay.
Would you like to talk about special services areas? Special services areas. What do they do?
Okay. Let me just share the screen here. Okay, everyone can see this? Can everyone see the? Okay. I'll just go through this safely. And we're having this special meeting because we have a budget increase that is above a 5% threshold, and it requires us to have a public meeting to explain that. I want to take a very brief moment to explain to the audience what a special service area is. I pulled this document from someplace, which was pulled from the city. And this gives our audience a very good idea of what SSAs are and what me and the commissioners do on a fairly daily basis. So this is from the Department of Planning. Special service areas are areas that are geographically defined. The properties within that area have initiated a local tax, and it funds additional services beyond the city services. So it's an extension of those services already provided by the city. It's the city grants taxing authority and appoints the local SSA commissioners, many who are on this video call today. City contracts with service providers, and the agencies administer the day-to-day SSA activities, and it's authorized by state statute, city ordinance, and the Department of Development and Planning departments. Just a very quick overview. The SSAs were created in 1977. I believe that Chicago Loop Alliance was the first one. Don't quote me on that, but that's the one, State Street. I think that was the first one. There are now about 53 of us. And the other stats, the number of service provider agencies. Some service provider agencies maintain more than one. And I believe there are one or two that do maybe 3 or 4. There's an initial term of about 10 years, extensions for 15 years. And the total budget is almost 30 million. The median is about 466,000. The categories that monies collected from the tax levies that can be spent are in 7 categories. Customer attraction, it's more or less programs and marketing. Public way, you've seen that in the street sweeping or the clean slate, the trash pickup. Sustainability in public places, there are things like art, economic and business development, things like facades, building facades, public health and safety. We don't have this because we have this security, but in item 5, you go to other SSAs and you see the security that patrols the areas. Number 6, number 7 is SSA management and office expenses and personnel. Those expenses cannot exceed 30% of the total levy. So for instance, if the total levy is $100,000, personnel and management cannot exceed $30,000. And the funds can only be spent within the boundaries. This slide tells some of the things that typical SSAs spend money on services, and we've seen many of these in our own SSA, number 61 Hyde Park. We've seen the special events, the public art. We've seen the customized trash receptacles and bike racks. We've seen the landscaping. This slide here tells you what many of the SSAs spend the most money or resources in. Pretty much all of us, 48 out of 53, do some type of landscaping for special events. All the way down to the recycling program and the bike racks. A little less than half of us spend it on those items. Roles and responsibility. The SSA commissioners, I believe it says commissioners, it says commission does. It recommends the tax rate, the budget, the service provider yearly, authorizes the budget item lines. This is the work plan, which includes the monies allocated to those categories I described and the goals that we're supposed to achieve. So commissioners also review the vendor finalists and approve those subcontracts, monitors the expenses, and like the meeting we have after this, it's monthly for us, reviews and approves the meeting agenda and minutes and authorizes payments from the SSA account. Commissioners do not sign checks, take out loans or lines of credit, or get involved in personnel issues. The roles and the responsibilities for the staff. This is mainly my day-to-day job, which is day-to-day management of the vendors and services, manage the vendor selection and RFP process. So all of the items that are there fall under what I do. Prepare regular reports to DPD and SSA Commission. Many of the reports that I turn into the city and upload to the SharePoint database, our quarterly reports, many of our budget reports, some of the things in terms of what the SSA has done, I have to upload that on a regular basis. Ensure legal and contract requirements are fulfilled. This is one of my favorite jobs in walking the footprint. There are people, clean slate, our power washers, there are people who do services for us. I walk around the footprint to make sure that stuff is done. And if it's not, then I have to call on those people and say, hey, come on back here. We do have a contract. I also recruit commissioners and manage nominations and renewals. I do not select the final vendor contracts. That's what the commissioners do. I am covered, as all the commissioners. There's legislation in the state statutes, city ordinances, that covers our responsibilities and what we do. Some of the key things is, just like any other entity of government, we follow the Open Meetings Act, which is what this is, Freedom of Information Act, and city and county ethics ordinances. Those lines means that if we do something improper, we go to the same jails that the aldermen and the mayors and everyone else go to. So we take what we do very seriously, or we go to those jails that those people we read about in the paper who don't do right go to. The legislation is here, it must be renewed every 10 to 15 years. We are at the end of our 10-year period, so we're going through our 15-year renewal as we speak. I'll show the map of the defined boundaries as they exist today. We'll talk about the tax cap rate. The city sets the expiration date, which is 10 or 15 years, and it defines the number, the terms, the qualifications, and appointment process of and their powers. The city ordinance, the annual levy ordinance, which is the work plan, which is comprised of the goals that we have to achieve and the budget it takes to achieve them. It must be approved yearly. It generally happens in October. So our 2023 budget, I'll check with the city to make sure that it got approved. We submit it in July, go through a number of back and forths, and then it gets presented to city council. Excuse me, I misspoke. It's introduced in October and it's approved in November. So it sets the annual levy and associated tax rate, establishes the budget, and designates the service provider, which is the parent company, the Southeast Chicago Commission. I am the program manager of the special service area, but I'm an employee of the Southeast Chicago Commission. As we go through that process, And many of you are involved in this. We have to have 2 community meetings to inform the SSA stakeholders and gather feedback. We must brief the local aldermen that we're doing this, which we have done. We have to get signatures from at least 20% of the pins or the property numbers within the boundaries. And these are the dates where we have to have 10% by June and the entire 20% by August of next year. And there's a formal public hearing in City Hall over this. And some of the vetting overview, if you've ever had to be part of the city, since you do somewhat of a rigorous requirements phase. You are appointed by the mayor, and you can't have debts or owe child support, and you have to follow the ethics statements. The same with the service provider. And the city, in administering SSAs, it does it on behalf of the taxpayers because that's what this is. It's a taxpayer-funded entity. And very quickly, this is kind of the flow of the org chart of an SSA. And this is the timeline creation. I know I've gone through this fairly quickly. This is a slide I can email to anyone. My email address is rod, R-O-D, at secc-chicago.org. So anyone who wants this slide, it's a city slide, I can email it to you if you email me at my email address. And these are the people that we all work with at the Department of Planning. And this is that slide. Okay. And so, Greg, we're getting ready to go to the next element on the agenda. And that is the service area. What's the map? You pull this over. Can everyone see the map?
Yep.
Okay. These are the boundaries of Special Service Area 61 Hyde Park. So it goes as far north as Hyde Park Boulevard. It goes as far south as 55th Street. In some areas, it's as far east as just around Hyde Park Boulevard and just as far west as Woodlawn. This is a commercial special service area. It was designed to minimize, it was designed to minimize residential areas that didn't have commercial areas. So if we take a look around 53rd and Woodlawn on the south side of the street, there are a bunch of residential condominiums. They haven't been included. The same is true when we get to the south side of the street on 53rd. These are residentials as you get closer to Hyde Park Boulevard. So this SSA was designed to just be a commercial SSA, as opposed to there are some that include residential areas because there are some residents who want the services that an SSA provides, in particularly some of the streetscaping and some of the trash pickup services. Over to the right, this is SSA 61 when it was established, and this gives a little bit more of the detailed boundaries. We've been funded by a tax levy, and this 65%, the 95% cap, that's been static for 10 years. The categories we mentioned earlier, and some of this you've seen, were seen by the mayor in the slide that I presented earlier. And service provider is my employer, the Southeast Chicago Commission. And the one last thing we've been waiting for is, why are we having this meeting? And I'm going to show the budgets in a second. Make sure I get the first one. It's over. This is our 2020 to budget. If you see the 2021, you're billed in arrears for your property taxes. So your property taxes that occurred in 2021 are collected in 2022. I'm going to point everyone to the bottom number. I'm highlighting $276,000. That was our budget roughly for this year. There's a caveat to that. It's what we started off with at the beginning of this year. There had been some changes, but through some miscommunication, the county hadn't been notified of the changes we made and a modification. So this was the number that was used as a base to determine what our next budget was going to be and the percentage from it. So I'm going to pull up the last one. And once I do that, I'm going to turn it back over to you, Greg.
Okay.
And I need to find that one. Our new number that we submitted is $296,000. That turns up to be a 7% increase. Anytime your increase is over 5%, state statute requires you to have a meeting such as what we're having tonight to explain why we're having such a large increase. The answer to that is that the property value increased. It went from roughly 42, 43 million with all the properties to about 45 million that you see on the bottom of my screen. So since our tax levy amount is based off of, based off a percentage, it pushed up. It's the property appreciation, not a raise, or we decided to add more to the budget that pushed our numbers up, precipitating the meeting. So I think I've done all of, going to stop sharing here. And taken all of us through what an SSA is, our map, our budget, and why it increased. So Greg, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Thanks. I guess the headline here is the tax rate has been 0.65% since we started this 9 years ago, and it has not changed since. Property values are worth more, so our budget grew. Yes?
That's correct.
Great. Well, let's do some Q&A from the audience. Anyone want to raise their hand and ask a question, or jump right in? We have a small group tonight. No questions.
Okay, Rod, I'll ask the question. On that map that you had, Rod, there was blue and there were purple lines. And sometimes the blue went outside the purple lines. What do those mean?
Okay, forgive me because I just closed the map. So let me open it back up fairly quickly.
Yeah, boundaries.
There are boundaries. Yeah, there are two kinds of boundaries. There was a ward boundary, and then there is the TIF boundary.
The ward boundary was in yellow. And
Okay.
The SSA boundary, well, that's okay. Maybe that's is that the purple was the TIF boundary?
Yeah, the purple boundary, I'm going to bring it back up. So the purple boundary is the TIF boundary. So give me a second.
So we're almost completely inside the TIF.
Yeah.
75 to 80% within the TIF footprint.
Okay, you can see this now?
Yes.
Yeah. The black lines here, there's another map to me that's a little more clear than this. But the ward boundaries go down 53rd Street. As a matter of fact, I think it's like the purple boundaries.
Rod, this was
Jeff,
the
I'm sorry.
map.
No,
Rod, sorry, this was the map that was originally used to form the SSA before the word boundaries were redrawn after
Okay.
the last census.
All right. I do have the most current map. I'm going to open that up. Can you all see this map?
Yes.
Okay. George, is this map more kosher?
That's more up to date. That's the current ward boundaries until they go into effect next year, the new boundaries. So we'll have to get another new map.
Right. We'll have another new map because this one still shows Nichols Park in the 4th Ward. And now it goes through 53rd Street and Nichols Park is in the 5th Ward. But this is how it looks today. The purple is the TIF, the yellow is the ward boundaries, and the black in the blue it encompasses the SSA boundaries.
Thank you.
Okay. Greg?
All right. Any more questions from anyone before we adjourn? Rod, this was great. I think you fulfilled the state statute regarding the public meeting to explain the budget increase of more than 5%. So thank you very much for your time and for everyone for joining tonight. There's another SSA meeting at 7 p.m. for those who would like to join. And I'll see some of you there shortly. Thank you guys.